Hello and welcome to Bottom Line. I'm Cindy Keynes. We have an exciting show for you today. We're going to learn more about the nonprofit Gesher Human Services. I'd like to welcome my guest for today's show. We have Clifton Phillips, who is the Vice President of the Residential Supportive Housing, and we have Mike Lancaster, who is the Clubhouse Director. Welcome both of you to Bottom Line.
Thank you. Thank you. Thanks for having us.
Yeah. So, Clifton, we'll probably start with you, and just so that we can help level set folks that are watching the show, to give us a little history of how Gesher Human Services came to be, because I think it's actually maybe uniting a couple organizations together.
Yes, that is correct. Gesher Human Services is they merged. It's joining the two organizations, which was JVS, Jewish Vocational Services, and Kadima, Mental Health Services. The two combined to form Gesher.
Okay, wonderful. And I think it was even back, so even with JVS and the history out there, I think it even dated back to 1928 when it was actually helping Jewish women get employment opportunities.
That is correct. JVS actually dates back maybe a little bit further. Where I'm working now primarily is Kadima, who has a history of maybe 30 years, but yes, you are correct.
Yeah. Well, wonderful. Thank you so much for at least help level setting with the history that's behind that and the other organizations that have grown into this. And so you as the Vice President of Residential Supportive Housing, how many houses is there right now, residential houses?
Right now we have 26 houses. For 26 homes. And they vary by level of care provided.
Yeah, could you kind of expound on that a little bit? My understanding is, there's some people that are in a house that live in a house and are probably very self-sufficient. And then there's other houses where people might need more additional help. So are you able to talk a little bit from how, from one end to the other spectrum?
Absolutely. So what we do is we provide services based on the level of need, which is usually determined in what's called an individual plan of service. So we have 24-hour specialized residential homes, which is staffed and managed 24 hours a day. We also have semi-independent homes, which are staffed and managed for 16 hours a day. And then we have community living support homes that are staffed pretty much as needed, on average around 8 hours a month based on that individual's need. And we also provide services in people homes, which is very similar to our CLS services, which is community living support services.
Okay. And also one thing that's also being offered is the activity center. And Mike, you as the Clubhouse Director, can you talk a little bit about what the activity center is and how it came to be?
Sure. The Zussman Activity Center currently follows the Clubhouse model. It did not always do that, but I want to say about 2 years ago, we started following the Clubhouse model, which is about developing strong relationships through shared work. We have 2 units right now. One is the culinary and horticulture unit, and the other is the business and outreach unit. In addition to the work order day services, we also host social events out in the community for our members at least once a week.
Wow. And one of the main activities is considered called the Creative Expressions Program. Can you elaborate on that program a little bit more?
I can. Creative Expressions is a great program. It is not part of Clubhouse. It is a separate entity. It's run by Craig Nowak, who does a wonderful job. Most of our members do participate in Creative Expressions. It gives them a creative outlet, an ability to produce art and to sell that art for profit.
Right. Oh my goodness. That's wonderful, because I know I don't think we could sell my art for profit, that's for sure. So I always value people who have that kind of talent. Now, Clifton, as we talk about the residential housing, talk about the activity center, creative expression programs, can you define who we are addressing? Because there is a particular area and, a need when it comes to sometimes mental illnesses. And there's a lot of help and need that's out there. And that's a real focus for the Gesher Human Services. Could you talk about who and what type of individuals would be able to and interested in participating there?
Absolutely. Currently, everyone we service have a MI diagnosis, which is a mental illness diagnosis. Oftentimes, people have dual diagnosis that we work with. So, just in case people may not be as familiar, some of the more common diagnoses we work with is bipolar disorder, manic depression, mood disorder. We also work with people that have schizoaffective disorder, schizophrenia, paranoid schizophrenia, just to name a few, but those are usually the people that we work with.
Okay. And how do people come to Gesher Human Services? Is it mostly by, word of mouth, at the website or advertisement or expo or fair that maybe went on to that there was participation?
Well, it's a couple places. One, we do have licensed group homes, so we do register our homes in Oakland County. So we get referrals through Oakland County Housing Link and through case management services. But in addition to that, we have pretty strong community ties, so we get referrals that way as well, and with a little bit of advertising.
Okay. And if you were to say, if someone came to you, what might the first initial meeting be like to understand, maybe what the person's interested in, what maybe their illnesses are, and how you can help? Is there like a intake and a little time that you find out more about that person?
Absolutely. We have an intake process where you fill out an application and everything, but generally we would like to schedule a phone call to just kind of talk through and just see how we can best service that person or their loved one. We learn more through listening than we do actually sometimes reading documentation. So what we like to do is just kind of get a call going and make sure that we can kind of ease the anxiety of how courageous it is to even ask for help. And then we talk through that and we try to help them. If we can't help them in our program, then we look for someone to partner with to help them.
That's wonderful because again, just coming forward and saying, I have a mental illness, I'd like to get involved, I'd like to have some assistance. It is something in that, and it's very courageous. And absolutely. Mike, in your activity center in the clubhouse, is that mostly from the people who are part of the residential housing, or is that something separate that people maybe they're not involved in the housing, but they want to participate in that, and they're throughout, and they live maybe at home with a family member or friends?
Most of our folks right now, most of our members are part of the residential housing program, but not everyone. And as we're expanding our membership, it will be open to people in the community, not part of the housing program. It's not required.
Right. And can you go back and why the clubhouse model? What made Gesher Human Services say, it's time that maybe we move to this model?
My understanding is, the way the story has been told to me, is that someone came in and saw that we were really close. The way that the activity center was being run had a lot of elements that followed the model, and adapting it and owning it as our own allows us to empower more people and fight stigma associated with mental illness.
Right. So can you maybe give us an idea of what a typical day could be at the clubhouse?
Sure. Well, we come in the morning. It takes some time for people to come in. They don't all come in at once, obviously. So we take some time to set things up, get coffee brewing and things like that. Then we have a morning meeting where we come together and figure out what the day is going to look like. We read agendas, and we discuss those things that a lot of what the clubhouse does is social. So there's a bit of just social interaction first, then we read the agenda, then we go into separate units, those two units that I mentioned earlier. We decide who's going to volunteer for what tasks and what things are going to get done. And then we have unit time where we do that work. We come together in the afternoon to discuss how well things went and what things could have gone better, and discuss the program at large, and then break into units again and usually run committees in the afternoon, larger projects that involve both units.
Oh, wonderful. And so that sounds like someone is very instrumental to the beginning, during, middle of the day, and the end of the day to get tasks to get to that end result that you're trying to. Can you kind of give us an example of something of one of the subgroups that it would be like for a day?
Okay, so obviously the food service, or the culinary unit is responsible for making breakfast and lunch for our membership. So we serve healthy meals here, and the members help prepare them and serve them, and they bus tables, and we all work together. It's all for the benefit of the community at large.
And then more for the ones that are the job opportunity and the other kind of other side of the house, and how do they kind of work through the day on tasks?
Sure. So the business unit, the business and outreach unit, is responsible for keeping all of our data and setting things up so that we can know who's here and what has happened, and tracking all those details. We also put out a quarterly newsletter, which is worked on every week at the moment. Well, I guess we do every day, but the committee meets every week to discuss those more complicated things. And we also do outreach to local businesses so that we can find job opportunities for our members, those who are interested, and they're usually tailored to the interests of our members.
Okay. And can it be any area of the business environment that you're looking for? And I know the culinary school, the side is a little bit more focused, but on the business side, could it be working in any parts of the businesses and companies that are out there in the Southeast Michigan area?
We've reached out to a variety of places. Some have been in the food service field, some have been in retail, and some have been in, I'm trying to think, more in the clerical area, that sort of work.
Wow. Now, Clifton, I know Mike had mentioned a lot of the people who are at the clubhouse and working there are some of the residents in that. One of the things that I know with the residents, how might you, I know there's more than one person who probably lives in the house. How do you get the coexistence of the right individuals together?
I was itching to jump in as Mike was talking. One of the things I'm glad he touched on that's very beneficial from the clubhouse, social interaction. Social interaction is so huge. A lot of our folks, and I'll really say this, especially coming out of the pandemic, were just kind of peeled back from society, stopped going out as much, and just the confidence that they gain from going to clubhouse and not only interacting socially, but having real applicable tasks that encourage them. I mean, you could just see the build and the confidence in some of our persons served. And as they come back home, we notice that, what Mike may not think about as much is like, hey, this person that was kind of shy and falling into depression now has an additional sense of pride from being able to socialize in there. And then we mentioned creative expressions where they were able to create art and do poetry and those things. And it has really helped lead to things that has helped outside of the clubhouse, getting more community interaction, getting them more involved and wanting to go back out into movies and things like that.
Right.
I'm sorry, I feel like I didn't answer the question because I was so excited. So,
no, I'm so glad you said that. I'm so glad you addressed that because, like you said, that the social piece of it, and that's everybody likes to do that. And then, especially sometimes if you're challenged in a certain way for a certain reason, everybody wants that opportunity to make a contribution or, interact with individuals and so on, and be as social as you might or not. And especially, like you said, for someone who might be more on the shy side, or that it gives them an opportunity to meet other folks that maybe are dealing with the same type of challenges. Clifton, it's, I was mentioning too, if there's more than one person in the house, how might you put people together? Because it makes me think, okay, when everybody, sometimes if people went away to college and they're in the dorm and they meet, put you in there with someone, you can make a break certain things. And I was just curious in the homes, how does that work? And then how do they break up responsibilities of housework?
So this is one of the things that I do love about being at Gesher. We have an interviewing process. So when we find someone that's interested in being in our home, first thing we do is we as a team, we have regular meetings about the home, like what is the state of the home, or is it staffed properly? Are the people in there interacting well with each other? And we look at what could be possible fits. And then once we interview that person, we have them actually come out, them and whoever their loved ones are, come out and see the home and actually sit down and talk with the people that live there to kind of make sure it's a good fit. And that's pretty rare. Oftentimes people that's in this position have to kind of go where it's available. So that's one of the things that we do, and it has really helped our success rate as far as each individual getting along really well in the home.
Right. And, Mike, you mentioned, the people coming to the clubhouse in the morning. So my understanding then is there transportation to kind of help individuals get from the various homes into the clubhouse then?
For the most part right now, the transportation is being provided by the homes, and we're extremely grateful for that.
Okay. That is wonderful to do in that. Now, I'm curious, when you mentioned one of the programs being like the businesses and things like that, is it also helping with maybe getting resumes or helping some of the members and the residents, put together maybe a resume if they have some skills that, that maybe a company out there could use?
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. The business unit is very good at putting together resumes and looking a little bit deeper into what people are capable of doing or what they have experience doing. Usually when we think experience in resumes, we think about what have I been paid in the past to do. Within Clubhouse, you're doing a lot of things that are valuable and could be valuable outside of Clubhouse. That's one of those very important elements of it. So, we look at what have you done here? How do you contribute here? And how can we put that into a resume to show what you're actually capable of, whether you've been paid for that in the past or not?
And that's a wonderful thing, because I think a lot of times people don't realize, I've had people talk to me, outside of this type of show and in my day job and say, well, I've never managed anybody. So how can I, become a manager? And it's like, well, maybe you're working with other people and they have to be able to coordinate, work together, and you're working for people and getting people to do work that don't work for you, which could be even a harder task. So I think a lot of times it's helpful, like your organization, to show, hey, these are how the skills you've used can really help. And I'm curious, on the culinary side, do they also find maybe jobs outside of just, the daily clubhouse and contributing to what they're doing there?
We have at least 2 members who are working in a food service type position. And when they come in and help the culinary unit, they're on it. They're reliable and their skills show through, and it's wonderful.
Right. So Clifton, that brings me back to you and the question I'm thinking now, those folks that have that culinary skills at the clubhouse, are they usually the ones at the home that do some of the cooking then for wherever they live at home?
Absolutely. And it depends on which home they live in. So some of our homes, they have weekly schedules, like who prepare the meals, and they sit down as a home and kind of agree to, hey, who's the person. So one of those persons that he's speaking on does prepare a lot of the food in the home, and everyone likes it, even the staff, when they get a chance to eat there. But before we lose the point, one of the things that I do like is that the merger between Kadima and JVS. So JVS does a lot of vocational and rehabilitation services for people that have disabilities. And one of the things we've been able to cultivate is a little bit of what Mike was talking about. When our folks go to the clubhouse and they're picking up those skills that they may not have been know that there are skills, we've been able to incorporate some of the training and the rehab that JVS brought to the table with helping our folks get employed, which have netted a couple of our individuals who actually have jobs now.
Wonderful. And, you mentioned that about having jobs. So is there also, I think Gesher also has some financial education or financial understanding education to help the residents as well, correct? So that when they do have the opportunity to, have a job and make money, they can help, know how to manage it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And
go ahead, Clifton.
No, you go ahead. Go ahead.
Right. Yeah. And I was going to say that one of the things, too, is when you're talking housing, my understanding might also be that you have, of course, people who live in some of the homes that are owned by Gesher, but sometimes you also maybe provide some transportation to services for people who might be living in their own home.
Absolutely, we do. We provide services for people that live in their own home. And also, one of the things that for most people, their goal is to actually get to a place where they own their own home. So some of that financial education is valuable for them as they can navigate through, even if it's navigating from 24-hour care to 16-hour care or to a lower amount of care where you will have more responsibility personally, those assets and tools that they learn not only in Clubhouse, but through our career services is helpful for them to maintain a very independent life as well.
Right. And as you mentioned, about the clubhouse, Mike, I kind of had a question. Do most of the people, come every day, or do they need to come every day, or should?
They do not have to come every day. One of the major tenets of Clubhouse is that everything you do, from your schedule to what work you participate in, how you contribute, is all voluntary. So the members set their schedule. Most people do have a set schedule, and that makes things easier all around because we know when to expect people. But the amount of participation is completely up to the member individually. We have people who come most days. We're open 5 days a week, and we have some people who come only once a week. If you're here, we're glad to see you.
Right. And you're right. Some days you might feel a little more social than others, or some days you just, want to just hang at home and relax. So one of the things I was wondering, Mike, with the clubhouse is the family perhaps of who's there. Are they able to kind of come in and at least get like a tour of the clubhouse so they kind of get an idea of where their loved one might be spending their days?
Absolutely. We do tours pretty regularly, and we're glad to have people come in. We've had family drop in and check out on folks. And I want to say we had at least one instance where family chipped in and was part of the work order day for a very brief time. People are welcome.
Hey, anybody welcome, and everybody, if they want to help, they can help,
Yes.
Clifton, I do want to ask a question for someone who's watching the show and says, I would love to maybe help or donate, or it is a nonprofit. So can you talk a little bit about what opportunities might be for someone who might want to donate their time or activities or funding?
So donating time is a little difficult because we are required in order for people to work with our individuals, we have to have, they have to be trained in certain areas. Okay. So generally, if the way that they can kind of tag along with that is if we had like an event or something, then we would probably have them in the pseudo role like that. But typically, we can't just let people just come in and volunteer in the way that most programs might. But as far as giving gifts or anything, they could definitely reach out to Gesher, who we do accept different gifts for our people in our programs, whether it's financial or if it's actual items.
Okay, terrific. And those items that you might need, would they be something that would be maybe needed for like some of the homes or so forth, or more office, items or so forth?
For the most part, we get like donations for the home. Like we'll get donations for furniture or lamps or things like that, or even sometimes food. Yeah, those things.
Right. And one other question I was thinking, Clifton, from before, you mentioned about having, more than a couple dozen, houses and things like that and homes. What helps you kind of expand for a new home or a new location?
Well, the first thing we look for is we want the best possible location. So we kind of approach it in a way that you and I would approach it. It's in a good neighborhood. Is the home in good condition? So those are kind of the tenets that we look for. Like, is it safe? Is it nice? And those things.
Right. And is there kind of usually a size of a house that you're looking for, or how many people are normally in one house?
Typically, we want either 3 to 4 bedroom house, but we do have some homes that are 2 bedroom.
Okay.
So, yeah.
Yep. And Mike, I wanted to ask you one question too. With the clubhouse model, and you mentioned that, of course, it's used throughout different areas, and that is there some kind of group that gets together that maybe shares lessons learned that other states, other cities do with this model?
Absolutely. There was a Clubhouse International Conference in Detroit a few years back, and I was lucky enough to attend that. It was amazing meeting people from literally all over the world that were doing all the same thing, and the attitude was very similar. We got together really well and did some interesting things. There's also Clubhouse Michigan, which is just the coalition of Michigan clubhouses. Michigan has always been known to have I think they might still be the largest number of clubhouses in a state in the U.S. So we've got a lot, and we really believe in it.
Oh, wonderful. And as we kind of close down the show, Mike, I'll ask you first, what are some final thoughts you might want to share with people who are watching this show?
The first thing that comes to mind, Clifton kind of hinted at this or talked about this, that there is a strength in reaching out for help, and there is a strength in knowing when you need help. And Clubhouse is one of those things that is one of the best kept secrets in mental health. If you need to feel empowered and feel connected to something, and you have skills you want to share, come join us. Come join us. We'll be ready to accept new members soon.
Wonderful. Well, thanks, Mike. And Clifton, what would words of wisdom for anybody who's watching the show?
Just kind of, I guess, re-echoing what Mike said. Please don't be afraid to reach out and ask for help, or even understanding a lot of the stigmas that are out there about mental illness are incorrect. So I encourage people to just reach out and ask the tough questions and get better understanding. And I'm sure once you do, it'll be something that you'll be willing to get behind and support.
Right. Well, Clifton and Mike, thank you so much for being on the show today. Thank you for your personal dedication and passion, because you can definitely see that in both of you as you speak about the organization, the group, and the nonprofit. And we thank that Gesher is around doing this and helping the people in the community. So thank you again for both being on Bottom Line. And I thank our audience for watching. And again, as was stated by Mike and Clifton, there's no reason someone shouldn't ask for help if they need it. So have a great day.